News was floating this conspiracy theory that Taylor Swift was a Pentagon psyop.
What does that even mean?
You can turn to page 345 in your Alex Jones hymnal if you don't know what that is, but that she was a plant to get people
She's definitely a person. She's
to
not a plant.
vote Democrat.
Oh.
Because it couldn't possibly be anything else. It couldn't be that she's a young woman in a country where a lot of people want you to be victims of forced birth. It has to be that she's part of some larger psychological operation. But anyway, here in reality, she might have something to do with some of this legislation getting passed. This might be what gets the ball rolling. Because obviously it's going to have her fans up in arms. But it's a pretty good jumping off point, too, for legislators to move on something like this. You got to wonder, though, I didn't see any of it. I had heard the stories. I didn't even know where people were finding it. But Twitter seems to be the place where you can find all kinds of things now that you're probably not going to see anywhere else. AI-generated pornographic images of Taylor Swift circulating. And, you know, people don't care if they're deep fakes, by the way. The people who are being deep faked, that's why this year is going to get really, really weird as an election year. Any election year going forward is going to get really weird with AI and disinformation and all that kind of stuff. Somebody created some fake robocalls in New Hampshire for the primary. It was, you know, fake Joe Biden telling people not to vote, whatever. We're going to see way more of that kind of stuff. But it is interesting to me the speed with which Twitter or X leapt into action. You know, Elon Musk is always out there saying, well, I can't do anything about it. You know, he fired his whole content moderation division, whatever. I can't, people got to be able to put up whatever they want. But it does underscore the influence that Taylor Swift has that this came down so quickly. Now, granted, tens of millions of people peeped it before it did, but... And only Travis Kelce would be able to tell us with certainty how accurate it was. Because he's seen her. He's seen it all, from tip to taint. But you might have seen the hashtags trending if you were spending a amount of time on social media. You would see Protect Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift AI, all that kind of stuff. What?
Nothing. I just, who didn't see this coming? I don't understand.
Well, not that you didn't see it coming, but, I mean, this has been happening for a while. You mean specifically with Taylor Swift.
But it's been happening not just with Taylor Swift. I told you, they had, like, an AI nude of, like, Shawn Mendes. Like, they have them of, like, all these, like, celebrities. They had one of, like, Tom Holland, like, all these.
But they're not, granted, but my point is they're not at the Taylor Swift level. So now that America's Sweetheart has been deep-faked, you know, because there is more of a push these days with for some regulation of these platforms, whereas before it was kind of the wild, wild west. You know, the internet in general is pivoting a little bit where things are going to start to get weird again, like in a good way. And so...
A good way?
Yeah, I mean, for people who are old enough to remember the early days of the internet, it wasn't as consolidated as it was. Now you have 4 or 5 tech companies that own and run everything. And so everything goes through those filters. But back in the early days, you know, early, mid-'90s, it was a lot of independent publishing and things like that on the internet. But as all of this influence has gotten consolidated, Google and Meta and companies like that, but people are starting to put those companies in the crosshairs now because a lot of people, things like this don't help, you know. When these companies go, oh, there's really nothing we can do, when nothing could be further from the truth. So, you know what people always like to say, if it can happen to her, it can happen to anybody. Which is a little disingenuous because, you know, people know who she is. Now, I know you're asking, Alan, when they deepfake Poundcake, will you look? Of course I will.
Hell, I'll look.
You look at your own deepfake porn?
Yes, especially if it's good. Like,
especially since deepfake porn, everyone is rendered in the best possible physical condition, right?
I mean, if they want to insult you, then they'll make it gross. But like,
well, nobody's going to make gross Taylor Swift porn. I mean, body. I mean, like people are rendered in amazing, what's considered peak physical condition.
Well, they better.
It makes it so appealing.
If they make a deep fake of me, then they better enjoy it because that's the only nude they're gonna get. So I would want to see. I'm like, ooh, look at me go.
Yeah, but after the deepfake happens, that's not a threat anymore. They can make their own nudes. They don't care if you actually have them or not.
Correct. So
Yeah.
it's less work for me. Good. Don't ask me for nudes. I'll send you the link to my deepfake.
He doesn't even want to do work on his own nudes.
No.
That's less work for me.
Like, do you want Brendan Fraser from George of the Jungle? Or do you want Brendan Fraser from
The Whale?
The Whale. Like, come on. He don't have to look like that forever. He don't have to look like George of the Jungle forever.
That's my secret to keep. I mean, Kelly Carlin filed a lawsuit against that AI website for the George Carlin thing. We played that for you a couple of weeks ago.
I hope she wins.
The AI George Carlin hour. And Kelly Carlin initially was like, this is gross and it's not, but she's the sole, keeper of that estate. And so she's suing the creators of that website. I don't know if that's Will Sasso and the other guy. I think it might be. I think they're the guys who are kind of behind that. But George Carlin, I'm Glad I'm Dead, was an AI hour that had made the rounds on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. I played a couple of clips here, and it sounded enough like him, but also it sounded enough not like him.
Yeah.
But Kelly Carlin's like, she's drawing a line in the sand because stuff like this just is going to continue on and on and on. The YouTube channel of Dudesy, which is a podcast hosted by Will Sasso and another guy. So I don't know if they're the ones that are being sued, but she's filing suit saying that the special was created through unauthorized use of his copyrighted works. And there's a lot of disclaimers at the front of that video. They're like, again, this isn't the AI voice. This is not George Carlin. This is just a hour-long hallucination. But the suit, I guess it is against Will Sasso and the other guy, saying that they input thousands of hours of Carlin's original routines into an AI machine. So she's suing, and strange times are upon us. And, they have to test these things, too. People who are working on learning models for AI, you have to know, you have to test things to see where they can potentially break down. And so they had these scientists with some firm that Google funds, and they're trying to train large AI models, and they wanted to see if they could trigger it.
Like BBWs?
Yes. Large models with AI.
Or like Amazons.
BBWs.
Okay.
I mean, it really runs the gamut. And they wanted to see if they could teach an AI how to lie or engage in deceptive behavior, and then by studying that, how they could detect it and then remove it, and kind of what they found is once that toothpaste doesn't go back in the tube when it comes to AI. Once the model learns to deceive, it doesn't go backwards. It's basically impossible to train a machine out of doing that. Once it, kind of like a person, Think about the first lie you ever told that most of us probably couldn't even imagine. Going back, thinking of the first time you ever actively lied to someone. You were a little kid. Hey, did you do that? No, I did not. And so they're finding out that once it's a really hard thing to study this AI, because when they're trying to learn these models, once they make it evil, it doesn't go back.
I remember the first.
It's a change. That's a permanent change.
I remember the first lie I ever told.
Mm-hmm.
There was this homeless man, or I don't know, he was on the run, and he told me that if the cops ask if I saw him, tell them I didn't, or he would kill my family. And so then the cops showed up at my house later that night, and they described this guy exactly, and they said he was really dangerous, and they asked if I had seen him, and I said no, because I ain't no snitch.
Lie to the cops.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But you were also worried that he might kill your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was 40 years old at the time. So, like, I was like,
Trying to protect your family.
Yeah.
Hey, there's never a bad time to protect your family. So you got all the way to 40 before you told a lie.
Yep.
That's amazing. Wow. I'm sure I started as a young
and that is
boy.
a true story.
I'm sure I started as a young boy. Well, the truth will set you free is the myth that we perpetuate. I've got a break here. I'm late. If you want to send me a text, 35192, AlanCoxShow.com is where you can watch if you're inclined, and we'll be back.